For better picture quality, adjust tracking control on your VCR.
Come listen to my story and listen to it well. I'll tell you of a great man who served his country well. His name was Daniel Boone and he wore a coonskin hat. And his clothes were made of buckskin. Now what do you think of that? Dan was born in Pennsylvania in 1734, in colony days before the Revolutionary War. He was famous as a hunter while he was still a boy, and the hours he spent in the forest, they were his greatest joy. Did you hear that? That was Daniel Boone with his long rifle out hunting a bear. Listen. He got him. Daniel Boone shot that bear. That was when Daniel was only 15 years old. Yes, Daniel Boone was the greatest hunter and explorer this country ever had. Now, sometimes Dan hunted bears. And sometimes wildcat. And other times the timber wolf. Daniel Boone loved to explore, too, and he was one of the first pioneers to see the Blue Ridge Mountains and the bluegrass region of Kentucky. Oh, Daniel knew the forest, he knew the forest well, the mountains and the rivers and where the animals dwell. He was handy with a rifle and with a hunting knife, and he loved the open spaces, the cleanest kind of life. Of course, there were other dangers in the forest in those days besides wild animals. There were Indians, and one day when Daniel was exploring a cut in the mountains where Kentucky, Virginia, and Tennessee meet, an area known as Cumberland Gap, he knew there were Indians ahead, unfriendly Indians. Quickly, Daniel turned around and silently he cut back on his own trail, but the Indians were behind him, too. Dan was surrounded. Dan fought like a wildcat, but the odds were just too great. He was captured and taken to the Indians' camp. The Indians knew Daniel's reputation, and they tied him to a tree post to prevent his escape. That night, when the Indians were asleep, Dan found a sharp piece of bark right back of where his hands were tied. Slowly and painfully, he rubbed the leather cord against the bark until at last he was free. Then, as quiet as a cat, he escaped. The Indians followed, but Daniel covered ground so fast that he left their swiftest runners behind. He covered 160 miles on foot in 4 days, and he met his friends, settlers from back east at Cumberland Gap. During the Revolutionary War, Dan was a major in the American Army, and his great knowledge of forestry and woodlore came in handy when he fought the British and the Indians on the British side. But he was friendly to many Indians because Daniel was a fair man to red men and to white, and he never used his rifle unless he had to fight. He didn't like big cities, he kept on moving west, and he helped to build our country and tame the wilderness. When the Revolutionary War was over, Dan kept heading west until he made his final home in Missouri. There he would sit under a tree during the day, and settlers and Indians came to him with their problems, for he was a man of great justice and simple democracy. His tree became famous as Boone's Judgment Tree. Often Dan sat under it and remembered his old battles and adventures, and he would fondly dream of his hunting days when he hunted the big bear and the savage wildcat and the wild timber wolf. And now you've heard my story, there is no more to tell. The story of Daniel Boone, who served his country well. His clothes were made of buckskin and he wore a coonskin hat. A democratic pioneer, I hope you'll remember that.
This is the story of a young man named Peer Gynt. Peer lived in Norway, a beautiful, faraway country where the tall mountains are covered with ice, and the coastline has deep harbors of water so blue it reflects the snow-capped peaks above like beautiful mirrors. Peer Gynt, everyone agreed, was a handsome young man. Everyone also agreed that Peer had a bad habit of telling stories that were simply not true. When he grew up, Peer had decided he would marry a very beautiful girl just his own age. Her name was Solveig. Though she liked Peer very much, Solveig told him he would have to learn to tell the truth, or else they could never marry and be happy. Why, no one ever knew if Peer were telling the truth, not even his own mother. Someday, Solveig said to Peer, you'll tell a story that will get you in very serious trouble. But Peer just laughed. He didn't know how true those words of Solveig's were. One evening, as Peer was walking along, he thought to himself, I am clever. I am handsome. I can say just what I please. Peer thought so much about what a clever fellow he was that he forgot to watch where he was going, and he lost his way. He walked and walked and walked, trying to find his way out of the dark forest, for night was falling. Very tired, he finally lay down near a big cave. Peer seemed to hear a strange sound, but he fell asleep, not knowing that what he had heard came from deep within the mountain cave. It was the noise of the troll people, strange little creatures who were afraid of the sun and came out only after dark. He awoke for a moment. Then he fell into a deep sleep. He could hear the trolls no longer. Though Peer could not hear them, the trolls heard Peer, and they waited until they were sure he was sound asleep. Very slowly, softly, they crept out of the cave. The trolls quickly formed a circle around Peer. Then quietly the trolls carried the sleeping Peer far underground to the dark hall of the Mountain King. Peer awoke. He was surrounded by trolls, and there, sitting on a huge throne, Peer saw the largest and ugliest of them all, the king of the trolls. Peer thought to himself, I will tell these people I am a very important prince. They will be frightened and they will let me go. So, acting very bravely, Peer told the ugly trolls that he was Prince Peer Gynt, son of the King of Norway. Even though Peer was not a prince, the King of the Trolls believed the story, and he said, I was going to let you go, but since you are a prince, you will make a fitting husband for my daughter. Here saw the troll princess. She had hair like seaweed, long sharp teeth, and big pointed ears. "I'm no prince," Pierre shouted. "I was only telling a story." And he started to run. But now the angry trolls wouldn't believe Pierre. They chased him through the cave, screaming after him. Pierre ran as fast as he could. "If I ever get out, I'll never tell another story. Never, never." Pierre ran. It was hard to see in the dark. He ran faster and faster. A troll caught his leg. Pierre shook loose. There was a guard. Pierre bowled him over. He was almost free. He dived for the entrance and rolled out of the cave. He was safe.
Do you recognize that music? That's right. It was the trumpet, the king's trumpet. And here's a wonderful story about that music. In a faraway land, there one time lived a shepherd king who owned many flocks and had many shepherds who tended sheep for him. One day, this king wanted to call all of the shepherds together. So he sent a runner for them. When they arrived, the king spoke to them and said, "Pay heed, ye shepherds. Henceforth, when I call ye, I will no longer send a runner. For look, I have fashioned for myself an instrument made from the horn of a ram. With it I can make many tones. So hark, shepherds. If you should hear me playing this, come home at once. This instrument we will call a shofar." Soon, each shepherd made his own shofar, and each made up his own call. They all made a set of calls so they could speak to each other. And while the sheep grazed, one could often hear the call of the shofar echoing from hilltop to hilltop. Later, when the king became mighty, he had an army, and the shofar was used to call men to war. As time went on, men learned to work with metals. Soon, they found that horns could be made of brass and gold and silver. These horns could play many more tones than could the ram horn. So the kings had trumpets made to play their special calls. They also found that if they made a trumpet long, they played low notes like this. And when they made the trumpet short, they played high notes like this. Now, in England, there lived a king named Richard the Lionhearted. And when he made ready to go forth with his army of knights, he would call his band of trumpeters and say, "Ho, master of the trumpet, sound off." And the master of the trumpet would reply, "Aye, my lord. Trumpeters, prepare. Sound the tucket." Then, as the king and his knights marched into the great cathedral for prayer, the trumpets could be heard playing music like this. Early in the 18th century, a wise musician said, "We need many trumpets because each one plays only a few notes." Now, let me see. If I make a trumpet with a piece of metal that moves up and down in a pipe and put a hole in the side of that piece of metal, I can use it to connect the different pipes to my trumpet. When I push it down, air will go through a long pipe and make a low sound. And when I let go, the air will go through a short pipe and make a high sound. Now, he had a trumpet with a valve that played many tones. Later, trumpet makers built a trumpet and put 3 valves in it. Musicians found that they could play all of the notes in the scale. One day, a musician brought his trumpet to the king and said, "Sire, I present to you a new invention, a 3-valve trumpet." The king looked at the instrument curiously and said to the musician, "Play that instrument, musician, and let me hear what it can do." So the musician raised the trumpet to his lips and played a tune like this. The king was very pleased, and the musician was greatly rewarded.
And you like your trumpet screaming. And you like your trumpet screaming. That's when you should call to see me, 'cause I've got swing for sale. If you think a waltz is horrid and you like your rhythm torrid, till it makes you mop your forehead, I've got swing for sale. Rhythm's what this country needs. For years and years I've said, if you buy from me, it's COD. I sell swing, but not for credit. Boom, 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 boom.
When I was a child, I thought quite a lot of the famous people in the storybooks I got. As I grew inside, So did I grow wise, and I've learned some things that really opened up my eyes. But in spite of everything I learned, there's one old guy who still is high as far as I'm concerned.
Old King Cole, am a merry old soul.
But the old boy loves to have his fling.
Old King Cole, I'm a merry old soul.
But he waved his scepter with a swing. Here is a man who never fooled around, but daily he makes to see a G. And now he's up yonder with a ring around.
They called the mystic Christian and went out of mute today.
Old King Cole is a noisy old soul.
Because he had his fling, and because he liked to swing.
I went down in history.
So perhaps there's a chance for me. Have you got any castle that you want to fill, baby?
Such a lack of good manners, you should swallow my throat, Henry.
I'll get out my scissors and cut.
Have you got any mortgages you want to have paid, baby?
After all my adventures, I'll throw.
I love
Help! Help! Jailbreak! Help!
Why don't they let me sleep?
Steak! This is getting to be a very grave situation. Hope for some meat. A sirloin steak. A minute steak. A T-bone steak. Even an old turtle steak. Turtle steak.
shepherd's, they ain't getting away from me. One, catch a turtle when he isn't looking. Two, remove from shell and then start cooking. Remove from shell. Just like ocean waves in there. See?
Ice cream pops, 10 cents. Get your ice cream pops.
I'll have a chocolate.
Make mine strawberry. That'll be 20 cents for two.
For two? If you don't come out when I count three, I'll shoot. 1, 2,
3. Trifle crowded, don't you think?
Come on or I'll come in and get you. I don't believe it.
Pardon me, I'm in the wrong picture.
I'm dying of starvation. No food. What am I gonna do? I gotta eat. I gotta eat. Meat!